first step. Yeah. I'll say that. It's, you know, I agree with some of the comments that Mayor Brown was making around, you know, he really intentionally was trying to use some stronger wording in the motion in terms of directing the chief to end the practice, and the way that the motion ended up was that it's been recommended, which is definitely a much weaker motion. But I think that the really hopeful part of all of this will be the committee piece that's been agreed to. So bringing together experts to really look at making some recommendations around a policy change for February. So, you know, one of the gaps that we've really noticed in all of this work as we've had this conversation, and why it's been so difficult to have this conversation, is that the new provincial regulations are really very, very vague, and they leave a lot of room for misinterpretation and a lot of space for bias to still exist in how the practice is implemented. So, you know, I think what we really need are some strong policy changes at the board level that will really provide the police with the kind of clarity that they need to do their jobs better and to satisfy the community need for policing that's non-biased.
Well, I think you have to go back to what street check definition they use, and that's the random, arbitrary, discriminatory stops. And that has always been our position, that they are not tolerated or accepted. The legislation that came out comes in effect in January 1st. It also stipulates that the interactions shall not be, you know, arbitrary or discriminatory. So the motion from the board essentially is supporting what the legislation is saying.
You know, I think it was an important conversation that was had. I think the London City Council, in its unanimous support, called the end of street checks carding, whatever you want to call it. I think, to me, it's just a rebranding. And I think it's an important step in the right direction to have this conversation. It's good to see it's came forward to the Police Service Board. You know, I see some progress, but not 100% satisfied, and I think there's still some more advocacy that needs to continue to be happening. And I'm deeply disappointed that only one colleague of mine was supportive of directing the police chief to do such. To see the recommend word, I think waters it down, and I don't think it speaks to the intensity of what the community wanted to see brought forward.
I think that City Council sent a really clear message earlier this month when they unanimously endorsed that motion that was received by the London Police Service Board. As a board member, I did my very best to bring that motion through intact. Unfortunately, there were areas that were changed, I think, that weakened the language, but the one thing I know for sure is that we're in a better place today than we were yesterday.